Do you know that there is a publishing company that wants to make life easier for you as a writer? This publishing company is called World Inkers Printing and Publishing. We publish in all different languages, and we're looking for writers of all genres, all formats. We're looking for scholars, ghostwriters, playwrights, poets, short fiction, novelists, you name it. We're looking for anybody who is interested in writing and the craft of writing to be in touch with us. You can reach us at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. With World Inkers Printing and Publishing, you do not require a lot of money to publish with us. Contact us today at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. Become a winner with other authors at World Inkers Printing and Publishing. Give us a shot. We will surely finish you.
Hello, here we are again with another program of Foreign Policy Review for May 18th, 2023. I'm your host, CARLO Parcelli, and my two co-hosts are Ben Toth from Hungary and Billy Bob from the left coast. And today we want to begin with the Seymour Hersh article dealing with this approach by several Eastern European countries for Ukraine to initiate peace with Russia. And I'm going to kick it right over to Ben and let him give us some of the details. And we'll start right there.
First, I'm going to say hello, Shaniqua, one of our regulars. It's great to have you here from the beginning. Yes. I'm just going to set the mood basically for the Sy Hersh story, because it came after a week of, I think, extraordinary events around the world, which all connect to Ukraine. Basically, a week ago, and we discussed the attack on the Kremlin, which failed to even dent the flag. Right that day, Zelensky was in Helsinki, Finland. And since then, he's toured all of Europe. He hasn't gone home. And back at home, we can talk about that next. In the midst of this story coming out, he went to first to Rome to meet Meloni, then the president, then the Pope wearing a sword trizub, which is the OUN's official symbol. Very big smiles and all that. Next stop was Germany, where Olaf Scholz stands there for 20 seconds while the car runs in. He was just out in front like a good little soldier. Met with that guy, and then he was somewhere in Britain, I don't think London, absolutely hugging Rishi Sunak, the new Indian UK Prime Minister. Before I'm still not sure he's at home. I don't have the latest information, but while that tour was going on, there were immense attacks on basically troop buildups and military hardware in Ukraine. This has been going on for 3 or 4 nights in a row, even though Russia's ran out of missiles and ammunition like a year ago now, or something like that. But suddenly they send these massive volleys into the place, right? So it looks very, very bad, even the optics of it. And in the midst of this, we get this story. I think we can get back to the military strikes in a bit, because we usually don't talk about these. We don't do this map analysis, little movements. It's one thing, but we like the big picture. This Sy Hersh story just came out, and apparently there are 4 countries who are in secret trying to achieve some sort of a sit-down, some sort of a peace between Russia and Ukraine, trying to talk to Zelensky to calm down. We'll even give you money, apparently, that's in the story. And what surprised me, being in Hungary, is, of course, my country is on the list. We have been advocating for peace for 1.5 years, consistently. Even though we haven't been exactly on one side or the other, trying to hedge, like Erdogan, who just got in the first. Anyway, don't distract. We're on that list. And the other 4 countries are the 3 Baltic midgets, Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania, and Poland, who have been extremely warlike. Go beat Russia, we'll send you everything, go beat Russia for exactly that time, 1.5 years. And for me, it was first unfathomable. I had some time to think, but I'd like to give this over to you guys. What do you think about? Is this palatable? Is this a real thing? I mean, Sy Hersh obviously has contacts, high up people, but it shocked me. That was my first response.
Do you have a comment, Billy Bob?
I mean, I wasn't aware of it. I didn't read the Sy Hersh article until this morning, really. My first thought is to not trust Poland, not trust the Baltics, because anything that they're involved in, isn't for the good of humanity. But maybe out of necessity, they're realizing, hey, it's in our best interest to cut a deal now before things go even worse for us. I mean, and that's totally possible. Alternatively, maybe they're just waiting for wanting to kind of put a stop to the actual battle in Ukraine that that isn't going well for Ukraine, and then slowly doing some kind of a what is that called? Like the original plan before Russia invaded seemed to be to allow Russia to go in and then try and occupy it, and then subversion, low grade war. I can't.
That could be it. Yeah, like urban resistance, like partisan warfare.
Yeah.
Thank you. Partisan warfare. So that kind of thing, just to bleed Russia for over many years. And so maybe that's what they're thinking is going to be the best option. But yeah, thank you for reminding me of that word, partisan warfare, Ben.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, maybe taking the conflict underground, that's the military aspect to it, because we'll talk about later, it doesn't look good for Ukraine, but there's also the economic and I think the refugee angle that Carlo has looked into.
Yeah. Oh, right. The immigrant angle. I want to add two things about the Zelensky deal. They said he could also keep his multi-million-dollar villa in Italy, and he can keep all the money he's already embezzled, all of his offshore bank accounts. It was a sweet deal. If I were Zelensky, I'd take it. I'd want to change my T-shirt sometime. It's like, good Lord, he looks terrible. He's doing so much coke. Jeez.
That's the thing.
But anyway, I'm losing my train here. That leads us to another element that I wanted to introduce into this story about peace talks, and that's the Chinese, because what's occurred simultaneously with the Balkan countries and Poland and Hungary supposedly entering into these loose peace negotiations, or insisting upon with Zelensky peace negotiations, is the Chinese have stepped up their efforts to do so, and they're I don't want to get his position wrong, but he's an ambassador for the Chinese. Li Hui is meeting with the foreign minister or actually it probably has already met now with the foreign minister of Ukraine, and has plans to meet with Zelensky, I guess, when he gets back into the country. And so the Chinese also are now involved. So there does seem to be some kind of movement. Now we can go into carry the conversation into the gamma ray situation after the large explosion at the Khmelnytsky ammo dump that theoretically released gamma rays into Ukraine, and is now, because they're being carried by the winds, have now entered into some of these countries. So it's like you're not only have an influx of immigrants, but now you have an influx of radioactivity, theoretically. And I think Ben can really comment on that.
That was a lot. Let's the gamma we can get onto later, because a lot of people have a lot of different takes on that. But I checked into some hard data, and at least you actually said it pretty well. I'm gonna try. The Khmelnytsky area, it seems to be very real. But before that, you commented on how Zelensky looks, and I checked every step of the way, like in Spain, in Germany, and then in England. He's babbling about there's nothing in Crimea, it's all gone, there's no tourism, no industry, and he looks terrible. He's falling apart in front of our eyes. That is very, very true. And by the way, for the last 2 or 3 days, I haven't seen him anywhere. I don't have any comment on the location of this guy. I don't know where he is. There's people doing some speculation, but I'd rather not do that. So yeah, apparently he's going to go back to meet this Li Hui guy, which is going to be, I think, fantastic, which is not the only peace proposal either, because Hungary completely embraced the Chinese peace proposal, which got us into hot water. Our relations with Ukraine are down the drain, since one of the leaked documents came out that not only did this guy plan deep attacks inside Russia, but he planned to blow up the Druzhba pipeline, which supplies Hungary, Czech Republic, and I think through us, Serbia. and he said this, one of the leaked documents, which was in, I think, the New York Times or WAPO, that it was to destroy Hungary's economy. You can imagine how we take that. So that's how we factor into this. We're very angry about this. Okay, peace plans. Lihu is one. Now there's an African group of countries who are sending delegations to Moscow and to Kiev, and now the Pope, who had some very rough comments in the magazine of the Holy See of the Vatican about Zelensky being there, and he broke every piece of protocol. He sat into the Pope's chair. He was just standing around in ordinary garb, and there's some other guy, a big gray guy behind him. You could see on his face he was disgusted by Zelensky. And he is planning something. And Zelensky's immediate response while he was in the Vatican meeting with the Pope was, we don't want, what do you call it, these mediations. No. We want a peace plan. We want a peace plan that doesn't involve Russia. We already have this 10-point peace plan. And the latest that I got from his media, the Kiev Independent, was it should be at the G7 in Hiroshima, where your Joe Biden is. And he's not going anywhere else, apparently. He had a tour of Asia. It was cancelled. But it should be there without Russia. Okay, so for me, I understand Hungary. These three little midgets, the Baltics, if you look at the UN numbers of refugees, because that's another factor that hurts the economy, they don't register. Poland does. 1.5 million Ukraine refugees are there. They're a drain on the economy, which is already very, very bad. I read this story. Don't know if you know, in Hungary, there's a lot of petrol stations, which a year ago were Lukoil, which is a Russian brand. And now they've turned into, I forgot the name, but something with an eagle, Orlan. And they are losing something like 23 million a day, the whole company is, because of the sanctions on Russia. You know, that country is not looking good economically. That's that angle. There's a military angle, there's the economic angle. So I can imagine them, not the Baltics. These guys are destroying Soviet monuments. They're rewriting history books, burning anything that's Russian. I don't understand if there really is something like this. But as for China, they created peace in the Middle East. I mean, if someone can do it, they can do it. I mean, imagine Saudi Arabia and Iran and now Syria back in the Arab League, even though they were warned by all the US representatives that it would be a mistake. We're upset with this, to return Bashar al-Assad Syria to the Arab League. I think their lawmakers want, of course, their regular answer is to sanction people who want to normalize the relations. So if someone can do actual negotiation that involves Russia's concern, that involves Ukraine's concern, and maybe last to a longer lasting peace, it should be Li Hui's team. And he is, just one final comment on that, he's actually touring Europe, including Hungary, and going to Moscow as well. So he's going to talk with every player here before there's anything done. This isn't immediate.
He's the one that was the former Chinese ambassador to Russia, I think, right?
For 10 years. He has the Order of Victory, the Order of Friendship, given to him by Vladimir Putin. And before that, about 15 years, that was the Soviet Union Eastern European specialist, which later became Central Europe, Eastern Europe specialist. That's the guy. That's Chinese diplomacy. I love it. That's who they're sending.
Jimmy Dore did a really good little episode on how the U.S. response to these peace initiatives. And they actually captured a quote from some U.S. official saying that, you know, their outrageous peace plan, like that we're totally opposed to peace. Like peace is bad. And I forget the actual quote.
Even a ceasefire.
It was like a 7-minute Jimmy Dore clip, and they were complaining about how there's pieces breaking out between Iran and Saudi Arabia, and how China is trying to get peace between Ukraine and Russia, and how bad that is.
That's
just awful.
It's a threat.
It's a huge threat, Ben.
Yeah,
you don't understand.
Our national interests, to our national interest, peace is a threat. That is what the U.S. has become. It is late stage of empire. It's
sort of the history of the U.S. in a nutshell. I mean, they've been involved in destabilizations that forever. I mean, and of course, since the Truman administration codified the CIA, it's just been
since World War II, definitely.
Yeah.
You know, every time I see an, I don't want to get too far off track here, but every time I see a picture of the Dalai Lama, you know, and some praise for him, I just put CIA underneath it. It's just absurd. I mean, it came out several years ago. He was receiving $130,000 a week from the CIA for at least 10 years. My God, give me that kind of money and I'll flip too. You know,
It should be tattooed on him somewhere, as well as Yomni Park and, you know, the Venezuelan guy, Guaido, these guys.
Yeah. So anyway, we maybe we could link this. I don't know if I'm getting ahead of the game here, but link this up with the supposed shooting down of the supersonic missiles coming out of Russia by the Ukrainians. They shot down 18 out of 18. Perfect score.
But before we move there, I just want to make one last comment about China's legitimacy. I mean, China is the power that can do this. I mean, China can pull this off. If anybody can, it's China. And what they did between Iran and Saudi Arabia was amazing. And I think the world is very, very, optimistic about what China can offer. And I just think it's a great thing. But I wanted to just kind of hit that point home. But we can go back to the military aspects.
No, I agree with you on that, because it's not just economic power. They haven't been very good propaganda power in the world. I think that's where they're a little weak. But diplomacy, they have a very well-trained diplomatic corps. I mean, Sergei Lavrov is the best in the world. That's my personal opinion, not a fact. But Wang Yi is a very strong second. And, to broker that deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia, that's not a week. We're talking, this has probably been going on for months to get to that stage.
And you need a strong economy to be able to get people to listen to you. I mean, you need incentives, you need carrots, and you need sticks, but it's mostly carrots. It's like, hey, this is win, win, win. And China has the legitimacy because they can go in and rebuild Ukraine. I mean, they've built 400 cities from scratch of 1 million people or more in China over the last, 50 years. So, I mean, they can go into Ukraine and they can rebuild it better than anyone. And I mean, so
it was they're the real builders, not just offers on paper or threats on paper. Because the Russian saying is, and I think China's coming around to this because they're still not picking up the phone, is the West is agreement incapable. Even if they sign something, even if we have a verbal agreement, there's no incentive to keep it. China says we're going to build this, and it's built. And the latest is they had Pakistan and China, basically through the BRICS mechanism, is going to rebuild Afghanistan. Because like what US built 20 schools under the 20-year occupation. They're gonna build thousands, and you can already see it because they have this legitimacy, because they've proven it already.
Right, and the U.S. is going to do its best to sabotage. The U.S. is going to sabotage and undermine and try and tear down what China is hoping to build, and that's just what's going on. It's been going on for a while.
Yeah, and wreck. But the most of the world has very, very fastly. It's not just the banking crisis, the de-dollarization, but very fast thrown its back towards the U.S. It's been too many since World War II. Too many years of all these promises or all these threats, and they just had enough. We have to survive somehow. The antithesis to the U.S. doctrine is development, peaceful coexistence. That's what they have to do to survive. Yeah. So back to Ukraine, Carlo.
You guys want to talk about the I can't remember the term, but the supersonic missiles that Russia fired on Kiev, and that the Patriot missiles, even though one of the Patriot missiles launching pads are part of it because it's spread out, was damaged or was ruined, they shot down effectively 18 out of 18 of these hypersonic missiles. And even though their own military representatives for days were claiming that the original claim that a hypersonic missile had been shot down the week before, the Ukrainians themselves were denying it. And now they've been forced to accept that this perfect score of 18 out of 18, when in fact, if the Patriot missile launching pad was indeed harmed or destroyed, I'm sure it wasn't just random shrapnel. I'm sure it was a hypersonic missile. So any comment on this utter stupidity? It just reminds me of everything that comes out of Ukraine or the United States. Just lies, or Britain, the British press. Lies, lies, and more lies.
That was the story every time with every attack. And that was supposed to be the story this time. This was not last night, but like 2 days ago, two days ago in the evening hours. So they a lot of decoy missiles, and about I think 2 Kinjals were sent. Kinjal is the Russian word for dagger. These are the hypersonic missiles. Even the Pentagon says there is no viable defense. They have said this throughout the year. There's no way. Doug McGregor, Colonel McGregor, Ritter say the same. There's no way it can be intercepted by the Patriot. So they're supposed to say, okay, we shot 4 out of 4, and then Shoigu said, well, we only shot 2, but every time they shoot down to twice as many as we send. So there's that. But there was a video. There was a video, unfortunately.
Let me just add. I'm sorry. One brief comment.
No. We're chatting.
They said that the Ukrainians themselves said they used 30 Patriot missiles to shoot down. I'm glad you brought up the decoys. Mostly decoys. 30. The United States can only produce 250
in a year.
Of these motherfuckers, Patriot missiles in a year. So you talk about pissing away. That
was an expensive night. That was a very expensive night. If 30 missiles were shot up, Patriot missiles that are very expensive, and most of them were being fired at decoys. And then after they exhausted their their ammunition, their I don't know what that's called, a clip. Is it called a clip? After they exhausted everything that was in the clip, then the ostensibly the hypersonic missile took out or at least damaged the Patriot battery. So it seemed like it was totally coordinated by Russia to do just that, to have them expend all of their ammunition and then hit it with the hypersonic missile. What are your takes, Ben?
This was the one 2 nights ago, and I agree. But there's a couple of details we can definitely construe from this, and there's theories that I'll mention as well, which I'll state is not fact, but there's theories. So one was there was obviously, this was 2 days after Klitschko showed the other Kinjal, which was some sort of small missile. The Kinjal is like 14 meters long and 2 meters wide. It's a massive fucking thing. So what he showed is not that. There's been no evidence of 2 nights ago of any casualties, of any basically no evidence of anything shot down. They haven't shown it. They haven't shown a down Kinjal anyway. It's just saying. Right. So if you can't win a real war, win an imaginary one and pretend it's a victory. That's why, what was it 2 days ago? The main 14th or 15th was now the Air Force Air Defense Day in Ukraine. That's what they did. It's insane, but that's what they're doing. But there was this video that you saw, like I think 30 shots under like 2 minutes, like insane amount, and then the object being destroyed. Now, a battery has a lot of these launchers, but it also has the radar system. That's the heart of it. And according to Brian Beletic's latest analysis, that most of that battery was taken out. And from the, I don't know which it was, maybe the New York Times, maybe some other, that even the Pentagon is saying, yeah, it was damaged. Not destroyed, but damaged. Okay, fine. Yeah. But you have to stop using it until we assess the damage, which is going to be tough in Kiev right now. But from that, I can say it's much more than damage, and it's not really going to work again. And that, as you said, millions and millions of dollars just down the drain. It's just gone. So I wonder how Europeans, they pay for a little of this, and Americans especially feel about this, because if you combine this with the ammunition and weapon stockpiles that were in the previous days, all week this has been going on, even though Russia has no missiles, I think we're in billions of okay, that's maybe too much, but definitely hundreds of millions of dollars territory. Because if you saw a couple of days before that, this was in Pavlograd, and the one you mentioned, the Klemnitsky, and the third one, I think Ternopil, where it was almost a mushroom crowd. It's shot from maybe a kilometer away, and first it goes up to this high, and then there's the shockwave, and you can feel it in the video, and then it just goes up. Like it's nothing I've ever seen before. It's not just one of those these guided bomb explosions, but tons of material just going up. And the Patriot is the latest, but what really hurt this time is that video. Because they're supposed to shoot everything down, and it didn't cost much. But this video came up, and Ukraine has since arrested 6 bloggers and made one of them to apologize for shooting that video. She didn't know what was doing. She posted it on Telegram. I'm sorry, because the story was supposed to be Zelensky's official statement. Things can turn around. Miracles can happen. We can defeat Russia. Look, we shot down everything. That's what it was supposed to be. But most of the world paid attention, saying, well, That doesn't seem to be the case in this video, because after that, there's 2 blasts, exactly as many Kinjals were sent. There's 2 blasts at the end of that video. And suddenly, Raytheon, who makes these bugging things, went down 7% overnight. So I think the moneyed people were paying attention, and this is something like the worst advert in the world for American military technology. And this, again, that was theory. Again, this is not fact, but there's 2 things that came across me. I can't verify them. Turkish sources, I think Anadolu news agency said, had a meeting, a top-level meeting of NATO officials because of this destruction of Patriots. And the second one, this is obviously nothing but theory, is after they shot that first salvo, maybe 6 missiles, there's this theory that they emptied the device. Like you can see that everything speeds up afterwards because they knew it was going to strike, and they wanted to reduce the radius of the blast, not have that many explosives in the device. These are the 2 things that I can't confirm, but I have seen these. So I think massive humiliation for Raytheon, for the so-called super space age American technologies in warfare, and a huge face to the wall for the Zelensky regime.
And I think there's one word that Western people ought to get in their fucking heads about this, and that is attrition. When you shoot 30 Patriot missiles, it's like Zelensky sending more and more troops into the only open road into Bakhmut, or semi-open road into Bakhmut, to get slaughtered, and several other regions on the so-called stalemate on the Eastern Front. The attrition rate is horrifying. I mean, even in the leaks coming from the Pentagon a few weeks ago, 7-1. So, same with Patriot missiles. It's a mechanical war of attrition. Billy Bob.
Do you guys have on the top of your head the price per Patriot missile? Do you remember that? I remember it was somewhere, but it was in the millions. And then just contrast that with if Russia just sent over a bunch of the Shahed drones from Iran, which are like what, 20K or something to build. So that's what you're doing. You're losing $10,000-$20,000, and the enemy's having to fire a multi-million-dollar missile to take it out. So that's unsustainable for the West.
So it's 400 million for one of the launcher systems and 690 million for a full battery of the missiles, of the projectiles. So that was shot up, $700 million into the sky, and probably you're landing as debris, but those things happen all the time, and then they blame Russia. Amazing. I thought my 30th birthday was expensive, but it was a really cheap affair for this. So ending it a bit of a funny note before we go to a hard break, which should be somewhere about here, and then we'll get back to you, I think, with Bakhmut, which is 99% Artyomovsk now, so really no longer Bakhmut.
Yeah, I'd like to come back. I have a theory about Prigozhin.
There were 2 interesting psyops that we can get back to with Prigozhin.
So we're ready to go to a hard break. If MUTIU, are you ready?
Undoubtedly, Africa is the best tourism destination on Earth. The continent is blessed with the most conducive atmosphere. To feel and enjoy these blessings, join the most productive one-week tour of the continent organized by Daylight Africa every September 2nd to September 9th to see beyond the fallacies about Africa on the mainstream media. Contact us at daylightafrica@gmail.com or call 718-822-5555. Daylight Africa. Revolutionizing tourism industries in Africa.
Well, as we all may know, Prigozhin, I can't remember his first name offhand, but he is definitely on the outs. So TASS has been forbidden to publish any of his diatribes, and I have a great deal of sympathy for him and the Wagner forces because of the way this war of attrition is being fought. And if look at it this way, the Wagner group has really done most of the grunt work
In Artemovsk.
In Bakhmut.
Bakhmut, yes.
Of course, the artillery barrages have been the big story. But he's in a situation where if there not had been this notion of attrition that is sucking more and more Ukrainian troops into what's being unfortunately called the meat grinder, which has literally killed tens of thousands of Ukrainians, it would have been over a long time ago. You wouldn't have had a month, 10 months now, or whatever it's been, a situation in Bakhmut. They would have seized Bakhmut in much less time if they had cut it off, been allowed to cut it off, which have done. So, not theoretically, but practically for several months now. I mean, with the artillery barrages, you can stop that kind of infiltration. But the Russians, somewhat cynically, have been allowing Zelensky to put more and more forces in, putting more and more pressure on the Wagner group, and putting Prigozhin in his position where he's kind of a Sisyphus. He can win Bakhmut, but he's just the next day he and his people are going to have to go back into the field and win it again. And I think that's getting to him. It would get to me. I'm just speaking at a personal level. But he's not articulating it well. But I think that's what's going on. People want to call it PTSD, but I think that's what his breakdown is all about. It's like he's doing his job. He could basically have his job done months ago, but the way it's being handled by Zaluzhny and his people is no. We're gonna keep it open somewhat. We're gonna, back off a little bit. Let more Ukrainians come in, and then you kill. And we're gonna basically kill most of them with artillery, and then you come in and mop up. It's got to wear you down. I mean, I can't imagine.
I completely agree. If you've looked on Telegram channels and the videos on the ground, it's absolutely horrendous. But what Russia is doing, you can also see this on Telegram channels, is there's still people in those basements, and they're rescuing them, and they're sending them back and giving them clothing and food and shelter. So that's happening as well. That's why we're going building to building, and they still find people in those basements after how many months? It's almost
like civilians.
Years. Like civilians, yes.
No,
and
I had no idea.
And they didn't want to go to Ukraine. I can send you videos with subtitles, like reliable subtitles. It's just amazing. Because I read this. This is going to be more poetic because Russia doesn't want the Russian person, the Russian soul, isn't going to Ukraine because they hate what's in front of them. They're going there because they love what's behind them. I found that beautiful and poetic, and that has always been the case. The people of the Donbass, to keep them safe from shelling. That is the cause. When it comes to the meat grinder, it's a bad word, I know, but it's the reality that even the Kiev Independent calls it that. Yeah, people saying who are doing these maps, Kiev accounts, NAFO accounts, Bakhmut holds every day. I've seen it. Bakhmut holds. It would be a huge shock to them to say Bakhmut is lost. So they send in what they can. I mean, the latest I've seen from Bild is 1%. Of Bakhmut holds, which means it's in Ukraine's possession, which is something Prigozhin calls the domino region. He's taken the nests. I don't know this lingo. I just follow it. But I think he's reluctant to just take it all because Zelensky is psychologically incapable of letting it fall and regrouping and saving lives. And he's going to surrender. Like, what are the latest numbers? I heard this is from your presidential candidate, RFK Jr., is 300,000. I've heard more than that from Scott Ritter, from Douglas McGregor, who have way more sources, way more accurate way of calculating it. 300,000 military-age people dead. That's a tragedy. That's a catastrophe for the country for decades and decades to come. But that's unfortunately what Zelensky decided to do. It's obviously not. By the way, you mentioned not Syrskyi, he's the ground forces one. I've seen him about recently, but Zaluzhny, I haven't seen Zaluzhny for over a month. Like I haven't seen any appearances of that man. And then someone put up, he's at a wedding, and it came out that wedding was half a year ago. So I don't have any reliable info on that. But that is Bakhmut. Well, unfortunately, not just psychological, but a real. That's the issue. So Ukraine needs symbols. We won this. Look, we put a flag here. Russia doesn't need symbols. It doesn't need to take land. It wants to destroy the enemy military. It's demilitarization and denazification, and they're doing it stunningly. So it surprises me. Sorry, Billy Bob, go on.
Those are two important stories. One is the cynical use of Ukrainian blood on the side of the West, which includes Biden and Zelensky, to just that's what their strength. Their strength is their number of expendable people, because they don't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck about the Ukrainians, and especially because a lot of those conscripts come from East Ukraine anyway. And they're like, good, kill them, let them die. I mean, that's the attitude. That's the reality. So yeah.
Sorry, and Transcarpathia and the Hungarian ethnic people in the western part of Ukraine. They're being... Here's the amazing reverse psychology that Zelensky is doing. He's saying the Russians are using human wave tactics. It's absolute projection. And then he said somewhere, I don't know if it was Rome or Germany, but he said, people are lining up to sign up for the war in Ukraine, but the Russians are forcibly conscripting people. And we've seen these videos every day of people being just captured and being put into a van. And that's what he's accusing Russia of. It's always what you're doing. Just put that onto the enemy.
So that's a very important point to highlight. The cynical exploitation of Ukrainian blood. I mean, it's awful, but it suits the U.S. because it's gonna be able to develop enmity and factions. Well, enmity is a better word for generations to come. It's gonna be something that the West can manipulate and use, in their their geopolitical struggles going forward. The fact that so many East Ukrainian and ethnic Ukrainians or other ethnicities are being maimed and killed. But the other issue is the Prigozhin, Prigozhin spat with the Russian high command.
Valery Gerasimov, yes.
And that's a problem. I mean, that's not good. That's not a good look. There's no good way to spin that. It's just all bad.
Okay.
And it's hard to take sides. I know on my Facebook, a lot of people side with Prigozhin, and then there's people like Scott Ritter and others that kind of are on the side of the what's the Minister of Defense?
Well, the chiefs of staff, the general staff of Russia. Yeah. There's Valery Zaluzhny, who's the big puncher, and then there's Sergei Shoigu. And you're right. Yeah. I have a take on this, which again is theoretical. So let's put the label on that I'm speculating. But I've seen these videos. There's even memes, by the way, of Shoigu looking out an airplane into the night sky, and then Prigozhin appears. Shoigu, where's my ammunition? That thing projected onto the airplane. Like, he's become a meme being so angry. We've seen him with body bags and all that, right? And he's yelling personally at these people. But there's also other psyops. Apparently, it was leaked. This is a Ukrainian source that he offered to exchange Bakhmut by telling Ukrainians people where the general forces, where the Russian armed forces were, which that gave it away to me. This is a site for me, theoretically. This is aimed at the Western Ukraine. This is a confusion tactic. That's why Peskov was asked about this, and he said anything that relates to the SMO, I can't answer, no comment. Because I think it's meant to just, all right, you want to send more people? Look, we're out of people, we're out of ammo because the Zaluzhny is not giving, not Zaluzhny, but the Shoigu is not giving it to us. Now is your time. Go on ahead and strike. I think there's going to be, in a couple of months from now, there's going to be an award or something for you played this role perfectly. Because a lot of the people, Russians wear masks. They can't be identified. So there's one mask for the whole, one face for the whole operation, which is Prigozhin and his Wagner boys. He has become the face of the offensive. And I think Russia wants to use that asset to its maximum potential. Again, I don't have sources in the Kremlin or the Russian armed forces. That is the theory I'm working with currently, because it really looks like that to me, because the outcome is always plus, even when they say they're out of people and ammo.
Yeah, I've heard that. So ostensibly, it would be nice if it turns out that Prigozhin was, playing a role, and it was part of a coordinated psychological operation in order to, benefit the Russian strategy. I hope that's true.
I don't know if you know Ramzan Kadyrov. He got a horseback from sanctions somewhere in Western Europe, and he didn't have to pay a price for it. There was also this other psyop that apparently, and this was according to that head of national security, the Danilov guy. That's not the little spy guy, but the big guy with the glasses, a very horrible guy, Ukrainian guy. Yeah. And he said Putin is apparently absolutely terrified of Ramzan Kadyrov. Now, if you believe that, then I have a bridge to sell you, as Alexander Mercuris likes to say. They are trying to put these divisions in there, which are just not there.
Well, but I mean, I see that. So, but I think that there's actual divisions, and those actual divisions are being exploited. And I think the leaked document saying Prigozhin was, trying to tell Ukrainians where the Russian forces were, I think that's obviously an attempt by the Ukrainians to exploit the existing divisions. And then same with the thing about, Putin and Kadyrov. I mean, I think that's, a cynical, opportunistic, exploitation of actual existing divisions. But, I don't know. I mean,
on the other hand,
you're right. Yeah,
I think Goebbels said it right. The best propaganda is that has a little kernel of truth in it. That's believable. So who knows? I don't think there's any real divisions because not Shoigu. Prigozhin is not the commander. He's the face. He's the camera guy. He went into the front lines and like a house next door got shelled and he was laughing on camera. This was a couple of days ago. It's amazing. He's the face. The actual commander we already know is General Surovikin, General Armageddon. He designed the meat grinder, and then there was this other guy from Russia who got they say dismissed, but he was transferred under the commander Surovikin. So I think the whole Wagner group is very much under the Russian Central Command, but there might still be some little differences there that they are exploiting with this. I think war propaganda again. That's my take on it.
I like our coverage of those two issues. Carlo, anything to add? Because we do have elections to discuss. Elections.
Ooh. Elections where? Here?
At home and in Turkey.
Turkey, Thailand, and then the Durham report.
Oh, and Taiwan too. They're a little bit off though.
Taiwan.
They're a little bit off. So if I can add a little cherry on top of this, like I said, I think I wrote this sometime earlier, and I know it wasn't this scale of a conflict, but I remember during the Chechen wars, right, that this is going to, what you said, this will seed animus for generations to come, for 50 years, for 100 years. Look at the Chechens now. It's not that much later, and they are the fiercest fighters that Russia has. Completely loyal, like the most loyal soldiers and the best special forces. So
that's when we say, Dan, that's a good point.
Yeah, Ukraine is going to be forever in this animosity stage. Well, I'm really not that sure about it. A lot of this Bandera crap has to be purged because I saw like a little girl, I don't know, maybe 10 years old, a cute little, like, what do you want to be when you're going to grow up? A Ukrainian girl. I want to be a sniper so I can hunt the Muscovites. So this hasn't started 2014. This has started much, much earlier than that, this horrible seed. But it has to be extinguished. And then basically, as Shanika said, time will tell.
Yeah, and thanks, Shanika, for giving us the first name of Prigozhin. So
yes, Yevgeny,
but
which is Eugene, by the way, in English.
What's that?
Yevgeny is just Eugene. He's Eugene Prigozhin.
Oh, okay. So I really don't have too much to add. I will say that the propaganda. It's fortunate that people like me in the United States don't count for anything because we're so easily propagandized. We're such fools. We're such ninnies. That to back up a little bit, to talk about, say, something as stupid as waves of Russians rushing in to be slaughtered. I mean, I literally have people writing me saying, yes, I understand that 80% of the Ukrainian casualties are from artillery. Yet the Russians are sending waves of forces in. And I go, use your fucking head. If 80% of the Ukrainians are dying from artillery, why the living shit would the Russians have to send in waves of people? I mean, what, to clear out the bodies? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, maybe. That, we're
just basic battlefield logic.
That they're not all like us Americans, who are so easily propagandized and believe the most stupid things, which has double-edged sword. For one thing, we're used, yes, and we are idiots. We're a bunch of ninnies. But on the other hand, the more ninny you get like these people, these fucking virtue signaling assholes in the U.S., the less important, the less you count. You don't matter. They've got you. They fucking got you right where they want you. So,
cognitive.
About all the psyops going on, with the Russians maybe to sort of throw off balance the Ukrainians. But when the bottom line comes, if when we're dealing with Americans, you're dealing with people who have no say, are absolutely useless.
Look.
And I just wanted to throw my 2 cents in on that. I don't know if it has apropos of any goddamn thing, but
Yes,
it sure
it does.
frustrates me every week when they threaten to kill my dog.
I can
I don't
illustrate
even
it.
have a dog, but they threaten to kill it.
And unfortunately, you're not alone. Even most Hungarians who consider both opposition media and the government media as both propaganda. And right now it's Thursday, so Russia's going to take over Europe. But tomorrow, Russia's going to be this weakling power who can't even shoot, right? And they believe these two things simultaneously, as do Americans. That's cognitive dissonance, isn't it? The belief of opposites. Like, China's going to collapse any day now, but then we have to fight the chip industry because they're going to outperform us like easily. I don't know how they get away with this. I don't know where the critical skills have gone. And by no means is this exclusive to America.
Well, 200,000 Ukrainians are supposed to, 200,000 Russian dead. That's the figure that these people are trying to pass on me. And then the whole notion that China is somehow suddenly an enemy it's staggering to me how, it just takes CNN and CNNBC and Fox and all these other shit-faced liars from the Washington Post, New York Times, whatever you want to cite, Los Angeles Times, Chicago Tribune. It's just that's all they have to do is to turn people. Turn people into hating China. Why do you want to hate China? What is going on in your brain? Do you feel China is suddenly an enemy? And Taiwan is a separate country and all this other nonsense.
It's a Western democracy, don't you know?
Yeah, at work. It's like I quoted Alexei de Tocqueville the other day on Twitter, and I said, Alexei de Tocqueville, this was 1826. I think it's 1826. He wrote, "There's no population with less independence of mind than Americans." He wrote that in 1826. It was true then. Wow. It's still true now. And this is how stupid it is. People read Democracy in America and they think it's a great paean, a great hagiography of the American political system. No, it's a condemnation of it. They don't even know how to read the fucking text. So anyway, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Carlo. I love your
propaganda definitely works, and it definitely works on Americans, and it's insidious, and it's created a country of confused people. We are definitely subdued. So I did want to touch on elections shortly, briefly. So we talked about Turkey last week, and maybe even the week before about this upcoming election. So apparently, Erdogan got more than the opposition, but it wasn't enough more to avoid a runoff. So there's going to be future elections, and Erdogan has outright stated that there's Western meddling trying to get him out of office, and they're rigging it against him. But we'll see what happens. So I don't know what the timetable for the runoff election is, but Erdogan, it's going to be him and the opposition. I think just the two of them.
Yep. Basically,
and
it depends on who the third guy those voters go with. I hope it's going to be Erdogan, and I say that as not an Erdoganist. Like 5 years ago, I would have been with the Kemalists, who are his opponents. But it's so perfectly obvious if you look at just the covers of magazines these past months. The latest I saw today was the Guardian Weekly, which has a cover about Erdogan and the death of democracy. Is it too late to change Turkey? It's all been obviously against Erdogan. It's what they did last May in Hungary, put all the opposition parties into an umbrella and try to get the main guy out because he's the new sultan, he's anti-democratic, he's the new Putin, the dictator, all that.
Yeah.
So 49%, he got through. There is going to be a runoff, and it really depends on those who haven't decided. I wish him best of luck, as did Vladimir Putin. That's Turkey. But as you said, There's other changes around the globe.
Yeah.
When you're opposed by the West, people ought to know that that's probably who ought to, we ought to have hope that they win. So yeah, Erdogan is no, I don't know. he's no Putin probably. And he was playing both sides. He played both sides for a long time, but finally the U.S. behavior put him, against the U.S. And so now the U.S. wants him out, and they're going to do whatever they can to get him out. And the question is, can they do it? We don't know. In Thailand, Brian Berletic lives in Thailand. He's a great analyst, and he mentions that their election, the opposition, the U.S.-backed opposition, the NED funded, USAID funded, CIA funded, State Department funded lackey, won big, and that's bad. So Thailand has great relations with China. They're forced to have great relations with both countries because it's the reality of the carrot and stick approach by the U.S. You don't want to just piss them off because they have so many ways to undermine you. So the monarchy in Thailand has done a good job of straddling both, parties, but it's not good enough for the U.S. and they got their opposition guy in power. So I'm sure Brian Berletic is going to have some great analysis, way better than we could do on that specific topic. But it's not good news. It's definitely not good news for democracy, for the people of Thailand. It's not good news for China. It's not good news for humanity that this U.S. lackey has gotten in power in Thailand.
They still won one last one, and of course neither of us can pronounce the game. The main benefactor of this party, who is Brian Berletic, can do it. The Tanaton Juan Grun Grun Klut, something I'm going to call him Grun Grun. But what I'd like to ask, I think this was pre-show, but you might not have been here. His last two broadcasts or little videos, I didn't mean that in a belittling way. Did he look a little more concerned to you? Because I think that's
about that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't think Billy Bob was here, but he looked way concerned to me. He's there, and this opposition.
I haven't noticed that, but I'll look at it. And I mean, he's going to have something to say on it soon. He'll have a whole video on it pretty soon. But I don't know. I didn't notice any kind of change in his demeanor, but I didn't really pay that close attention. So I'll check it out.
Yeah, the program of this party was undo all the advancements with China, get rid of the Belt and Road Initiative, and instead of high-speed rail from China, we should get Hyperloop, which doesn't exist for more than a kilometer test cycle or something like that.
How could the people of Thailand vote for that? Like how? So I'm curious to see how legitimate of a vote that was.
Well, I listened to Danny Haifong and Brian Berletic and another person I don't remember his name offhand, and they were talking about the youth and how the youth is seduced by American culture, and I think that still has a handle on it. I just want to say one thing about Turkey, and that is it's the curse of unintended consequences, and the guy that didn't intend what happened in Turkey is happening in Turkey recently was Ataturk. And it goes way back to Ataturk and his secularization of Turkey, because they too are susceptible to a lot of American culture. And if you watch their movies, they're patterned after Hollywood. And in fact, it's ironic because my wife and we watched a Turkish movie last night, and it was a sentimental piece of fluff. But it was interesting to see how they'd taken the American idiom and they had translated into a Turkish context, and the whole world is like that. So you can't discount, like what they were saying about Thailand is the kids they take these kids and they tell them, look, you want to be cool like the stuff you see in the movies and the stuff you play on the video games. That's the U.S. that's cool. These other people, the Chinese, they're just boring pragmatists. You don't want that shit. You want the excitement of being stupid, like Americans. That's although you can't afford America's stupidity because you don't have 800 military bases around the world. You don't have transnational corporations based on Wall Street stealing all your natural resources. So basically, what we're going to do is we're going to use this culture to fuck you over, and you're too dumb and young to understand. Now, the only difference between that and America is Americans are neotenists. That is, their children from birth to death. They're little children because they're pampered little nitwits who really have not earned anything except by the bullet. And so that the people in these other countries are being fooled into absorbing this kind of Western culture, and it's huge, and it's actually something I know quite a bit about. Maybe we should.
Ben, are you going to reference Andrei Volchek?
No, I wanted to bring these three elections together in a nice little wrap based on what Carlo said. But you go ahead. I love
really
Volchek.
quick. So Andrei Volchek wrote a real great essay about that phenomenon, and it was called like "We Sold Our Soul for Plastic Bags," something like that. And he wrote it to the protesters in Hong Kong, which fortunately was a failure. But before he died, it was one of the last ones he wrote before he died, and it was written on this exact topic about how the U.S. uses this culture, music and all and the movies to turn people against their own best interest. Go ahead, Ben.
But when he said we sold our soul, he was talking about the fall of the Soviet Union for plastic bags and blue jeans. Maybe
no, he was talking about his own personal experience in Czechoslovakia.
In Czechoslovakia,
so
yes.
He grew up in Czechoslovakia, son of was a Russian and a Chinese or something.
Yes, he was Russian born and grew up in, I forgot the town, but the Czech place. Yeah.
So it was his experience, and he was sharing his experience about how he was enthralled, by this culture, and how he was so sorry that he didn't know any better. It's just a great expose.
Exactly. Some of the innocent people in 1956 Budapest, they wanted freedom, blue jeans, and Coca-Cola. Those were the big slogans that they wanted. Now I want to bring together these three massive elections. One is obviously Turkey, and I've read this Indian diplomat. I think it's either Mr. Badra Kumar, who I highly recommend. He does the Indian Punchline website. He's very experienced diplomat, and he's not a Sinophile. He's one of those Indians that loves China. And there's very few of those, very few. Or it was S.L. Kanthan, another one. Great analysis. He looked at the demographics of the Turkish elections, and it was basically mirrored, I think, in the Taiwan I looked over, and also in Hungary. The opposition umbrella, their major votes were first-time voters, the youth, basically mid to high-level administration, these NGO, the PMC people, academics, and the rural rich. Not rural, so the urban rich. And the Erdogan, or in our case, Orban, or in their case, the previous administration in Thailand, was rural folk, agricultural workers, industrial workers, the majority working population. So you can see that in all three cases. In Hungary, they lost. They won in Thailand. And so far, they haven't won in Turkey, and I hope they won't. I know we have 1 minute out, but I want to wrap these three together. It's so insane. We're different cultures, different regions, but the same dynamics described by Volchek, described by this Indian fellow.
They get targeting first-time voters, the young people,
the youth, the sort of NGO careerist, those people. Yeah, I thought that was highly revealing. Because it's repeating time after time.
No, it's the playbook. It's their playbook. It's their approach, and it's it gives them success. Not 100%, thankfully, but way too much. Way too much.
Hopefully, that's another spell that's wearing off. Just like all those color revolutions, many of them have failed, and all those wars.
I was just surprised. I was very surprised because I thought people get it. I thought our program has reached enough people where people know. But we still have work to do, guys.
Our program is tiny, unfortunately. So let's thank Shanika once more. She's commented all along. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you very much, Shanika. I just wanted to mention one article that I read was very impressive to me this week, and that's in the Gray Zone. It's called Neo-Terror. The first word's Neo-Terror, but it's Kit Clarenberg, and it's an expose. It's two French fighters went to Ukraine and to fight on the side of the Ukrainians, and they came back with prohibited ammunition, and they're also neo-Nazis. And that she lays out Kit, I don't know if it's a he or she, probably either one. He or she lays out all this neo-Nazi activity that's been increasing since the Ukrainian war has been embraced. And the sense you get at the end of this article is that fascism has already got a strong grip on the West,
Very strong.
Very enlightening article. I recommend it for anyone. Gray Zone.
I'll read that next.
So
thank you, everybody, and see you next week.
Yes.
Do you know that there is a publishing company that wants to make life easier for you as a writer? This publishing company is called World Inkers Printing and Publishing. We publish in all different languages, and we're looking for writers of all genres, all formats. We're looking for scholars, ghostwriters, playwrights, poets, short fiction, novelists, you name it. We're looking for anybody who is interested in writing and the craft of writing to be in touch with us. You can reach us at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. With World Inkers Printing and Publishing, you do not require a lot of money to publish with us. Contact us today at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. Become a winner with other authors at World Inkers Printing and Publishing.